Hello, everyone. There seems to be a time lag when I start. It is Monday, the 27th of April, 2026, and I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I still have a few hours I need to make up. But I'm going to be hitting the gym this morning and walking the dog. So, anyways, I did want to get into some international news updates, and I will focus a bit on Canada as well, and I will share a video from Moose on the Loose. It's been a while since I have, and I haven't seen it before, and so I'll watch it with everyone here, and then I'll get into some of the work that I've done regarding the science textbooks that I want to at some point possibly publish. Possibly publish. Again, they've been on the shelf for a while, but again, I'm not viral enough yet to feel comfortable enough to even release that. And not to sound dramatic or anything. And anyway, it just is what it is. Okay. Just gonna add this to the stage first. I'm gonna get into this one first, just to get it out of the way because I thought it was kind of funny. Even though, for the most part, there's a lot of good work that's being done right now in the U.S. There's things that I don't necessarily agree with 100%. I understand what's being done. Do I think that it's a bad idea for the short, mid, and long term? I do, but I've also given examples of why. Right? I've even done dissertations and articles, and I've published them on LinkedIn. Right? So I'm not just saying something and not backing it up with what I think should be. Again, the outcome, the course of actions, etc. And it is what it is. But anyway, there was that shooting that happened, and with the engineer who had studied at Caltech, and it's just wild. Just it's unfortunate just how much the propaganda has worked on people, even in the highest levels of academia now. An engineer, right? So this guy had his whole life ahead of him. 31 years old, smart, talented, all of that stuff, had a good career and stuff like that, and he completely ruined it. Ruined it. And again, for a lot of what I think to be propaganda. And it's manufactured terrorism, manufactured radicalism by people who are profiting off of this. And they don't care if it's causing division and this stuff, right? They don't care. And again, there are still people that are saying this is possibly a false flag. Again, I haven't looked too much into it. I have looked at the footage and the response of people. It did seem like it did catch people genuinely off guard. And then people are talking about utensils clanking and stuff like that, making it seem like it's more serious than it was. But that's going to happen when people are moving around under tables, through tables, knocking over chairs, people bumping into people and stuff like that. And so I didn't think that was like a red flag at all. But again, I could be wrong. And yeah, but some of the response, I will say, as someone that's worked at executive protection with the highest levels of government, even the prime minister, I don't do that anymore. But if friends did ask, it would depend on who it's for. And I might charge double for certain people. No, just kidding. But yeah, okay, so executive protection, you have your primary or your VIP, whatever you want to call them, and that is who you are responsible for. I didn't prep this, so like I hope I can explain this properly. And so you're not going to go for friends and family first, right? The priority is the primary, and that would be the president or JD Vance, etc. And so even people saying like one person got removed before the other, that again, that could just be simply by virtue of, again, it's response times for one thing, and possible locations to exits and entrances, etc. into the location to extract these people. And but yeah, so Trump was taking out Melania. Again, from the videos I've seen, she remained, and she had went under the table. Lots of confusion. And but again, like if Trump and Vance are being removed, right, I do think that they could bring their freaking wives with them, you know what I mean? Or just grab their hands and go with whatever. But there is protocols, and maybe, I don't know. So we'll see how they're trained and what the protocols are, and on what they say that they were told to do during these kinds of situations, right? Because like there are people that do things a little bit differently. But anyway, here's the response.
While I was going through the footage last night, he is the only man who did not cuck out on his wife. And I want to make this clear. I do not like this guy at all. And I think that he should rot in HE double hockey sticks. But I'm going to take the moment to put that aside and just state that, holy hell, out of all the conservative men last night, it baffles me that it is Stephen Miller who actually did not cook out on his wife. Maybe it's because very obviously he's got a lot to lose here, considering this is
That was
what he
funny.
looks like. But
So mean.
if you look at RFK's wife, she was just left in the dust. He did not even look back. If you look at like Melania Trump.
Okay, and I'm just gonna like further to that. I will reiterate that like wives, girlfriends, they are not the priority for the presidential detail or the vice presidential detail. And and first of all, too, because they wouldn't be as high of a target. They're not the elected officials that are calling the shots, etc. Right? And again, this is just a non-biased view. Again, I could be wrong, but this is just how I would look at this.
Trump, she was left to duck, and then at some point was just crawling around behind the table because she didn't even know what was going on, and she was left behind. These two women just completely exposed and left behind.
Yeah, that's
Most of the
wild.
conservative men last night ran for themselves,
True.
tried to protect themselves, and completely left their wives behind, except for
Or other
Stephen
women.
Miller. And a lot of people were noticing that the women were being left behind during the early stages of this developing. The excuse thus far has been, well, it's because it's Secret Service's job to just grab the important people. Stephen Miller was one of those important people. Yeah. Important.
But again, there were a lot of other women there that were fully exposed as the men were fleeing. And so that's not wrong. Yeah, no, they were not their wives. That's fair. But yeah.
That Secret Service was there to grab. And in the face of him being grabbed, he chose to grab his wife. Donald Trump was sitting next to his wife, did not choose to do that. JD Vance was sitting next to this woman, chose not to protect her. RFK literally just left his wife behind. There's no excuse here.
But there is an excuse there. And you know what, though? Yeah, because like I'm sure just like with people that I've worked with, like that is protocol. It's unfortunate. And it's also something that I'm like, if you look at their perspective, and it's probably really friggin' hard for, like, let's say like an elected, like the president, to know that he is the primary to be protected, and that in these situations, he has no choice but to go with his security detail and leave his wife behind. And it's unfortunate, but it's because he's the president, he's the leader of the country, and he is the most important person in that room. All right. And so it's, yeah, these are not easy choices. And again, I do see that, as a bit of a sacrifice. Anyway, but it is what it is. Haters gonna hate. I did share a few things, but they're not freaking posting. I don't know why. Maybe I have to refresh. This was wild. And it's regarding the $200 million for a rocket launch pad or whatever on the East Coast. And Rebel News did go and reported on the ground. And I've shared so much information about like who owns what and where the money's getting filtered through and to who and the difference of money to rent this as opposed to what it was purchased for, etc. It's just wild. But anyways, $200 million for a concrete slab. House of Commons calls for an RCMP investigation into funding for Maritime Launch Services Inc., formerly Jaguar Financial Corporation. 6 Liberal insiders are receiving $200 million for leasing out a gravel pit they don't even own, and they don't even own the land. The province owns it. They're leasing it. The RCMP needs to come in and arrest people. I totally agree. Like, how are people not getting arrested for this and fired? And it's because there's been so much top cover. It's not even funny, but the corruption, it's just so wild to me. And like people that's been watching my channel, I've been literally saying this for years, and it's because I was trying to communicate with these people, working with some of these people, or even working amongst, like doing contracts for these people, and trying to get the information out, even through COVID and stuff like that. And like the arrogance and just the lack of care and the entitlement to not even look at medical, scientific, and government data. It's just it was wild. And so I had no choice but to start sharing stuff publicly. And there's a lot of good people now that have come out of the woodworks in the last couple of years, especially 2 years, and they're exposing all of this corruption. And it's not hard to find it. And it's like, why are the cops not focusing on this?
Million tax dollars to a six-person company of liberal insiders to lease a so-called spaceport consisting of a gravel parking lot and a small concrete slab. 200 million tax dollars to a company that doesn't even own the land, but rather leases the land from the province of Nova Scotia for a fraction of the price. How do these liberals justify handing 200 million tax dollars to liberal insiders for a gravel pit?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, establishing Canadian sovereign space launch capabilities is going to drive billions of dollars in investments.
I told you that this guy was a clown, and this is why I share the information I share. Everyone thinks I'm crazy because I talk about the moon landings being faked. I talk about these being like the luminaries being some kind of like etheric plasma luminaries, you know, that are rotating above us, circular paths within this contained environment. It's because people are lying, and it's literally trillions of dollars, billions of dollars in Canada, but that are going towards fake programs. And it's such a grift. So much money is going into people's pockets. It's not even funny, when this money could be going towards developing Canada, our resources, our infrastructure, our defense, you name it, housing, affordability. There's just so much, right? And people think I'm crazy, but people that are believing in aliens, and then people that are believing in like human reptilians, right? Like abominations, that men could be women. There's people that believe that there's like 68 million pronouns, right? Like, I'm just going through the list here, that if you die, you're going to have 72 virgins. People believe in critical race theory, like fake history, especially white history for some reason. The Big Bang Theory, like even through COVID and 9/11. Replacement migration. There's so much that I find that is absolutely crazy, crazier than talking about the possible shape of the earth and the luminaries, etc. Especially when there have been people throughout history, the greats, the greatest minds and innovators we've ever had, that also held the same theories and provided their work, right? So I've written science books on this just to back up my claims and stuff like that. And again, people still, again, it just completely write me off, call me crazy because of that. And so it should be facts over feelings, but it seems that it's not the case. And like, now there's going to be more space programs and space this, space that, alien this, alien that. It's a lie. But I'm crazy. But anyway, sorry. Sometimes I just get, because I feel like I'm like the one that's like the least crazy in the room, and it's just wild to me. Anyway, just a rant. And everyone's agent smithing themselves. And if we knew more, if we had a better understanding about the reality of the world, like even our technologies, our energy technologies as well included in that, would be so much more efficient. Tapping into like the resonance frequencies. Anyway. Yeah, so even this, outrageous. By canceling the right of first refusal for federal security contracts to Commissioners Canada, Mark Carney is cutting out Canadian veterans in favor of private security firms, which are made up of 30 to 50% recent immigrants to Canada. So it was like a $330 million federal contract. And I think the priority again was veterans, but I know multiple veteran-owned companies, and they're incredible. They do a lot of response to natural and man-made disasters. And yeah, just so much. Like, these are literally support networks and innovators and people that do also work in the private security industry and stuff like that. But it's unfortunate that yet again, people, again, in my industry, I'm a veteran. I had a veteran-owned company that COVID like freaking destroyed my company, but since then as well. And yeah, and it's knowing that people that are not even Canadian are going to be awarded contracts that I 100% should have and that I've held in the past. Outrageous.
PhD on flexible. PhD on.
Finland's president says Canada could join the European Union. So he's been visiting Mark Carney for the past few days, went on CBC. So CBC will platform this guy, but he won't platform Moose on the Loose or Jasmine Lane or Mario for the North. Okay, so he went on CBC suggesting that Canada could join the European Union at some point in the future. What do you think of this?
And flexible integration.
Oh, dear goodness.
Basically, the idea that not every EU member state has to do the same thing, and that we can have very flexible relations between the EU and other players. I think Canada, in terms of its hold, composure, its value base, is so close to the European Union that the least we can do is to forge a really close strategic partnership. And what that then leads to in the end with the EU, which started as 6, ended up with 28, then after Brexit with 27. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can envisage a much larger
Why don't you ask people why there's a Brexit? Anyways, but even that.
EU. Whether Canada is a part of it or not is up to Canada. PhD on.
I wish it was up to Canada, but we have someone who is a 3 passport holding international hooer that somehow is our prime minister. And yeah, he doesn't care about Canada. Only as a grift. Okay, and so I just did this in AI, and I mostly agree, so I'm just going to read it out. Okay, so the European Union is often analyzed through 2 competing lenses. 2 people who are paid propagandists. It's a miracle of peace and economic integration, or as a monolithic technocracy that erodes the sovereignty of the individual and the nation state. I'm going towards the latter. From a strategic and institutional perspective, the controversies surrounding the EU generally center on the tension between materialist management, which is centralized bureaucracy, largely by bankers types and financial types, and sovereign autonomy, national and individual rights. Okay, so there. The democratic deficit and the loss of sovereignty. The most persistent criticism of the EU is that it suffers from a democratic deficit. This refers to the perception that power has shifted from elected national parliaments to unelected technocrats in Brussels, the Bilderberg crew. The conflict. EU laws, directives, and regulations often take precedence over national laws. Okay, so that's a full stop for me. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Critics argue this turns the sovereign nation into a mere administrative department of a larger collective. Yeah, we're just seen as resources to exploit by an international body, like not even by our own elected officials. And I do think that our strongest alliance should be with the US, 100%. But of course, Carney is not going to push that because that doesn't profit him or his party. The force doctrine parallel. In this framework, nations must appeal to the European Commission for control over their own borders, trade and legal standards and health standards and all of that stuff. And we're going to be paying a lot more taxes, ladies and gentlemen, as well. So we already can't afford what we're dealing with now. And again, this is just like another money grab. This mirrors the subversion tactics where rights are treated as granted privileges rather than inherent endowments. So even with funding for Canadian businesses or academia or anything, any institution, if you're not following the standards that the EU sets out for the guidelines that they want you to push, you're not going to get that funding. And it's our taxpayers' money, and we won't even have a choice. And with what's going on in Europe and the UK, I don't think that, again, I think that they've been occupied. I'm talking about like their government. They've been bought, bribed, brainwashed for the most part. And anyone that speaks out on it becomes they get painted, as a radical terrorist, a right-wing extremist, a white supremacist. It's just ridiculous. The Eurozone crisis and economic assetization. The 2008-2012 debt crisis, most notably in Greece, Italy, and Spain, revealed a deep structural flaw in the EU's design. A unified currency, the euro, without a unified fiscal government. Austerity as management. To save the euro, the EU, along with the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, also imposed strict austerity measures on southern nations. Many viewed this as assetization of a nation. It was. Citizens in Greece felt they were being treated as hackable economic units whose quality of life, pensions, and public services were being liquidated to satisfy northern banks and technocratic mandates. So how can we not look to the recent past for lessons learned when it involves the same people doing and saying the exact same things? They just move around. It's ridiculous. And it's because, they think we are that dumb. And yeah, it is when you don't get held accountable, you don't think that people actually know what you're doing. We do. We're saying it. The migration crisis and Schengen friction. The 2015 migrant crisis created a massive rift between Western Europe and the Visegrad nations, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia. The mandate, the EU attempted to implement a mandatory quota system for relocating asylum seekers. The resistance, sovereign-focused nations argued that the right to determine who enters a country is the foundational requirement of a state. They viewed the EU's top-down humanitarian quotas as a violation of national security and cultural continuity. The rule of law battles, Article 7. Okay, so currently the EU is locked in a significant legal battle with Poland and Hungary regarding the rule of law. I've shared some of the clips of the leaders talking about their immigration status and what the people want. And anyway, the technocratic view. Brussels argues that these nations are eroding judicial independence and LGBTQ plus rights, violating the common values of the Union. The sovereign view. Poland and Hungary argue that the EU is using financial penalties, withholding billions in funds, as a weapon of ideological subversion. They see this as an attempt to force a woke technocratic worldview onto traditional sovereign societies that prioritize the nuclear family and national tradition, which is what you're supposed to be doing. Regulatory overreach and the Brussels effect. The EU is the world's most aggressive regulator. The issue, while advocates say this protects consumers, critics argue it creates a technocratic prison for innovation. The globalist tie-in, and again, they're beholden to their shareholders, not the countries. Wall Street, Y'all Street, EU, WEF, who? Unfortunately, these have become grifts. And they've infiltrated NATO, and unfortunately, businesses must comply with ideological quotas to access the European market, which mimics the assetization of the individual into a compliant unit of an international system. Yeah, so Brexit, the ultimate exit strategy. Yeah, so the significant blow to the project's history, the motivation, the Leave campaign centered on the slogan, "Take back control." It was a direct rejection of the force doctrine and the Harari-style view of the UK as a mere stakeholder in a continental machine. Brexit proved that the normalization of the EU system was not permanent. It demonstrated that a population could, through the exercise of sovereign will, opt out of a centralized management system. Through the economic and political costs remain a subject of intense debate. So though the economic and political costs remain a subject of intense debate, Okay, so the technocratic EU model, rights are granted by treaty regulation, and they're radical. The sovereign national model inherent to the citizen soul, legitimacy for the technocratic EU model, expert consensus, efficiency. Yeah, expert. The sovereign national model, popular will, natural law. structure for the technocratic EU model, the hive centralized, the sovereign national model, the union distributed. Yeah, so history suggests that when the rights move from the metaphysical, inherent, or the spiritual to the material, granted, the system becomes fragile, top-heavy, and prone to the very collapse pattern seen in high control cults. Yeah, so then are you interested how ESG and DEI frameworks are being specifically integrated into EU law to manage the European family unit? I could say yes, and we can go on this. That's a huge piece. And this is why, to me, again, I've had no hate for, I've called out, and I've been very controversial regarding Jenny Carignan, the Chief of Defense Staff. My reasons for that is not because she's a woman, but it's because I believe she's a DEI hire and she's pushing DEI woke narratives. And it's not helping the Canadian Armed Forces at all. And we need to have a strong, robust military, right? As someone who's served 15 years in the infantry as an officer, like I'm very, passionate about that. And there are so many people that could have been in that position that had the expertise, and again, the focus being on DEI, even creating a citation for it, and what's being done, again, it has not helped. And it's frustrating because I do know women as well who are incredible, that I'm hoping and I'm thinking that they would not be pushing this stuff or falling for this stuff, and there would be pushback and there would be resistance, especially on even like the public servants, like coming from other countries, right, to augment our forces. When there's also people in Canada that I know personally, many people who reach out, they're saying like, yeah, I've been trying for a year, 2 years, 3 years, trying to join the military, and I've reached out to multiple recruitment centers, I've emailed, I've called, etc., and I'm getting ghosted. And so and again, I'm wondering if this is to fill quotas, and if so, then like, is she aware of this stuff? She's sharing, again, there's propaganda that's still being pushed from NATO that she's falling for, just like others as well before her. So again, it's no hate on that aspect. But again, like the positions that she's had, especially in the last several years, have been specifically promoting and pushing woke DEI, ESG culture. And in the Army, especially, it's just, it's not well received. And so, yeah, this top-down leadership, not listening to your chain of command, when I know people personally that were even of higher ranking that were trying to share medical, scientific, and government data regarding COVID, again, that was to Wayne Aaron those, but still, what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, incorrect. Incorrect. I went on this huge tangent. Yeah, the social mandate. ESG scores, the EU's creating a social credit system for capital. If a company or a family-owned business in a supply chain does not meet the diversity and inclusion benchmarks, they face higher interest rates, loss of investment, and regulatory fines. It goes on from there, but I've done so many videos on that. And I do want to get into, what do I want to go with first? I want to go with Alex Jones. I haven't shared his stuff in a little while. This is live. Yes. All right. So this is from Redacted. And again, I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So even though like we are like not on the same page at all with regards to the Charlie Kirk assassination, they do share good guests, and for the most part, I largely agree with a lot of stuff that they share. So anyway, not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Same thing with Alex Jones. He's had guests on that I've communicated with over the years, back and forth and stuff like that. And I still, I'm like, why has he not had me on the show? And I think, again, it's because of my discussions regarding the moon landings. And again, this shouldn't make people just run away or shut me out. Take a look into Bart Sibrel and information I've shared. I'll get into a little bit too when I read a little bit of one of my drafts that I was working on. But anyway, Alex Jones does some crazy things sometimes, but so do most people. And he's bang on with this, so I really like this one. I'm gonna like it just before I forget. So Alex Jones tried to warn President Trump about this. He was right.
That's correct once again. Vindicated over his coverage of the SPLC over the years. In fact, if you go to their website, Alex Jones is listed as an extremist on their website. You know that's how he's over the target on all of this. Of course, now we have this indictment from Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general. Why now? From the Trump administration. For why?
And like Alex Jones or hate him, because again, I've even had Win on my show, and obviously, like, there's tension there between him and Alex Jones because he's tried to assist, especially with the court cases, and that's not been well received at all. And so I understand the frustration there and the confusion. And brought him on. He shared his piece on that. We questioned again. I've said this before, and I mean this respectfully, regarding Sandy Hook. I have shared video footage, surveillance, etc., as well over the years. That's very interesting and compelling enough for people to at least consider taking a look at it themselves as well. I've shared these videos. You can take a look at it. And so yeah, it's not to dismiss it completely, but again, what I have shared is just very friggin' interesting. And that's not to say every event is a false flag or fake or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. I never have, never will. But we have to take a look at the fact that it is getting more and more complicated, right? It's going to be even harder now to decipher between what's real and not real. I've said that, including and especially with AI now, as advanced as that's gotten. Yeah, it's getting a lot harder. But anyways.
Fraud, all sorts of fraud in this indictment about the SPLC. Specifically labeled in the indictment is their funding of KKK leaders in order to basically foment chaos. In our last guest, we just talked about the strategy of tension, of course, which has been used by NATO for years under Operation Gladio, and to keep us in this perpetual state of chaos, funding both the left and the right, and telling us that, yes, in the United States, white supremacy is our greatest threat to the future of our country. Alex Jones joins us now, who has been vindicated once again. Alex, our friend, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Big fan of you guys. Great to be here. Love to have you on my show. Come on anytime. Yeah, I mean, I can do 10 hours on the SPLC. When I first got on air in 1994, Ted Gunderson, General Parton, when Oklahoma City happened, literally exploded on the scene, warning everybody the SPLC had basically run the whole attack. I interviewed the federal informants, the witnesses, everybody, FBI whistleblowers came out. I mean, this really blew up in their face, pun intended. And so I really learned about them then. And then I had them infiltrate us through an employee 4 years ago, and they published, what they found, which was nothing. And just crazy town stuff. But they are really the mothership to the ADL. And it's not just $1 billion they have in offshore accounts. It's multi-billions. And we've learned German intelligence, because U.S. intelligence likes to use a foreign agency, kind of like they use the British to go after Trump with Crossfire Hurricane. German intelligence is the main command base for them, kind of through the Marshall Plan, the CIA, through NATO, and British MI6. And so the entire racist revolution of the KKK, the Aryan Nations, National Vanguard, all of it is run by them, and they are the chief group. So now Todd Blanche, to his credit, I don't just believe Todd Blanche because I've been a big critic. I know he's right because I already know it. He goes on Fox and says, no, Biden killed investigations into them by the FBI for money laundering. Well, we know that. And so the Biden administration, this is as far back as they're going, goes back 50 years. The Democrats and the deep state is in control of the Southern Poverty Law Center that does all of this. They're tied into Fast and Furious, just everything. And they directly command. It's not informants. It's the leadership from Dr. William Pierce of Nat Van to all the groups is them literally creating this. So this is Jussie Smollett to the power of infinity. And the fact that Trump did this, finally something good from his DOJ. And I was told by Ed Martin when I was in D.C. like 8 months ago with him, he said, no, we're looking into the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ADL, the NGOs. He wouldn't tell me the details. He said, it's incredible. He also told me, which later came out in the news, that he has the chief of staff, coming in saying, yeah, it was a committee that was really the president, not Biden. And of course, that got killed. So I'm very upset. They just killed the investigation into former CIA Director John Brennan. So I'm very critical of Blanche. But the fact that Trump's doing this is striking right at the Democrat Party's control of the deep state, you couldn't hit at the heart of the system closer than the Southern Poverty Law Center. So this is ultra massive. If you look, just type in Alex Jones sued over Charlottesville. I was sued by a former State Department employee that worked for Hillary Clinton. Didn't even talk about him. I just said, look, the Southern Poverty Law Center was so sloppy, their NGO, a sub-NGO, funded crowdfunding for Charlottesville to go out and meet protesters. And I said, that's their MO. So they sued me, Southern Poverty Law Center, through Georgetown. That's a CIA front for these groups. And then when it went to trial, they dropped it, but it still cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars when I was over the target on the fact they were staging that event. And so, yeah, I have been battling them for at least 25 years. And the former head of the FBI in LA.
Yeah, that's what they'll do. They'll sue. They'll make you spend so much money. That's financial punishment. It's a war tactic. And then drop it before it gets to court, because that's when there's going to be releases that need to be made, right? So they don't want that.
Gunderson, the former head of Air Force Weapons Development, General Parton, they all immediately, because I started in 94 at an Access show, then a local radio show, and so I had a big show right away, got syndicated very quickly. I got to talk to all the original OGs who wouldn't release classified information on air. They would just tell me what was happening, but they had all the classification. And they were like, no, this is the mothership, the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's the heart of this. And so I'm the leading living expert on this, not just an expert, but a victim. And they've been behind the laws, quarterbacking it all. I mean, these are some very, very, I see these promos, you know, AIs of purple hair people going, look, let's manufacture racism to get more donations. Nope. That's not what this is. No. They're creating it to create division and balkanization and divide and conquer and civil war in America. Okay, the donations are just icing on the cake. So this action by Todd Blanche and them, I said, I'll call balls and strikes. I was by myself 2 days ago when this broke. And now the fact that Blanche is like, no, it's a false flag. No. They don't just have infiltrators. They run these groups. That is 100% dead on. So I'll give Todd Blanche credit where credit's due. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a lot more to come.
Well, not only does it scare people unnecessarily, we don't know what the state of racism would actually be without this manipulation and perversion. It also expands government power. And we saw in the wake of the Oklahoma City bombing, we had broader definition of material support. So the government started to say you can't support these extremist groups, which is exactly now what they're being indicted on. But also we've had greater use of surveillance tools, greater use of FISA. And so it was also a government expansion massively under Clinton, right?
Well, Bill Clinton famously on Air Force One, when he won re-election in 1996, he said, I owe my re-election to the Oklahoma City bombing. Just look up Bill Clinton owes re-election to Oklahoma City bombing. So they did that. Eric Holder was the deputy AG at the time. He later ran Fast and Furious to supply Al-Qaeda and ISIS with weapons and blame Second Amendment owners with that. This is their MO. And then they got caught really bad. I mean, they had to kill Terrence Yegi, the first cop to respond. I interviewed the K-9 unit, second guy to respond, Sergeant Browning, who threatened to kill him and his wife, the FBI, in his offices. I interviewed everybody basically involved who were witnesses to the deputy head of the ATF and others they saw in the maintenance areas planting what they call gray sticks of butter. They said they were phone repair crews, but a bunch of the bombs didn't go off. So we've known this since Elohim City. They had Carol Howell, the FBI informant, went public and said, no, there was a real bombing. McVeigh got upset and said he was Special Operations, Delta Force. He said, I'm not going to be part of the bombing. So they drugged him up and had him arrested. We had FBI whistleblowers on that. So we know who this group is back to that. But notice Blanche and them in the indictment talk about them funding criminal attacks. not just cross burnings, but you're going to find winding up mentally ill people that go and shoot up black churches. Remember that?
Right.
So,
Oh, yes.
and shooting up Focus on the Family. These are very, again, people are like, oh, they're purple haired liberals that stage racism to get money. No, that's a cover, folks. This is a multinational NATO. Post World War II, they set up the Marshall Plan so the CIA could operate in Europe and with no congressional oversight. And so, from my intel, German, and it's come out in the news as well, German intelligence that's been caught staging massive false flags in Germany against the right wing, firebombing Turkish people and all that. This is who they are. So these are the thoroughbred four horsemen of doom. I mean, these are the Darth Vaders of the leftist deep state. They're the captains of Antifa with Soros. They create the blueprint plans for that. I mean, Trump has struck directly at the mothership, which is a good sign with all the bad signs we saw. If Trump continues down this road, he is going directly for the jugular of these people.
Do you believe it's because their funding has been largely disrupted with what's happening overseas right now that this is coming out? It just seems, and the timing of all of this is so weird. We just had Colonel Towner Watkins on to talk about how they've known about this since the 1970s, right? This is all part of the Operation Gladio, NATO leave-behind armies.
You said exactly. NATO, Gladio, Steve Pachinik, back channel. I'm not saying Pachinik's behind us, but he ran Gladio as part of the operation. They took the Gladio model of blowing up school buses, blaming it on the Russians. That's declassified in Italy and things. And they move this over here, and that's basically the plan.
Well, here's something that'll make you look at your rain jacket differently. Most waterproof jackets, the ones from those big outdoor brands, the ones you've been, same rating that you'd find on forward redacted to 36912. That's redacted to 36912 and save 60%. And so
it's
what
really
is
hard for people to wrap their hands around the fact that their own government will fund attacks on them in order to expand their power and create chaos.
I mean, because we talk about
Hitler was elected president by a narrow margin.
Yeah, he's going to talk about Hitler too. When I'm off stage, the internet's better, and yeah, it's unfortunate and it sounds crazy. This is why I would like to, now that this information is coming out more, there's like irrefutable proof. They did not believe me that people within the friggin' government or working on behalf of the government were the ones that were staging and planning events, eliciting emotional response in people, using crisis actors, etc. Even people working in the friggin' government to go against our own, unlawfully, unconstitutionally, illegally, etc. Complete overreach. And yeah, and it was working. So even the what was it, the G20 or the whatever summit it was in 2010 with Bill Blair when he was chief of police in Toronto. Again, that stuff was happening there. It's happened in Montreal. This happened in Quebec City. It's happened in Ottawa. It's literally happened all over Canada too. And this is why people were not understanding when I was saying even before the Freedom Convoy, and I shared my social media tweets from even several months before it even happened. I didn't know when it was going to happen, etc. But again, like I had my finger on the pulse because of my work, and also knowing what happened with January 6th, right? Like having this information like really helps, again, to predict and plan for what might happen in future events, because it's just been out of control. So even the Freedom Convoy, I was saying, you can look at my videos, that there were going to be paid protesters, crisis actors, role players, and even I have utilized people as part of training scenarios, part of the practical portion of training scenarios I was using to train multiple people within government that respond to natural and man-made disasters. So I already know that there's a pool of people around, and then also people in government that do this. And so when you do it and you're deceiving the public, this is where I've always been adamant, like, you do not do that, right? And even when I was doing the courses with, again, civilians and government of all different agencies and organizations, they all signed non-disclosures. And I made sure I looked at everyone's social media presences. I did so much information on people before even conducting the courses for multiple different reasons. And then making sure that they didn't post anything. Like even during like the training or anything like that, or even afterwards. Very important, because that could deceive the public, right? And it's fake news, right? Because again, I'd hired journalists too, people that were trained in it, trained in videography and photography, etc. And they would pretend to be again part of like news crews and stuff like that too. And there'd be like fake interviews set up and things. Anyway, I won't get too much into it, but then there was people that were part of like the left and these radical groups that were funding the Freedom Convoy, certain elements within it, because they wanted this to be a huge, epic riot, a disaster. And they wanted this to be painted as some kind of a right-wing, white supremacist, fringe minority of people, radicals, that, wanted to come in and take over the parliament. And yeah, when people are refusing to believe that, even when they're working in the friggin' highest levels of government, you're refusing to believe that's actually happening. It's just so frustrating. It's like, what do you mean? Like, just look at all the proof I'm giving you, right? And then even the jokes with Marco Mendicino and David Lametti talking about employing tanks on innocent civilians. And by the way, also people within government working on the site as well. So also not caring about harming first responder types. Or the fact that you'd be getting tankers to murder innocent civilians because of fake intel. It's so alarming, like even with CSIS. And again, I know people that have worked with CSIS and great people, but there's a lot of people getting suppressed, and there are whistleblowers that are trying to get actual information out, and it's getting shut down. And even during the Freedom Convoy, taking articles and posts from radical leftists like Justin Ling and using that to justify declaring the Emergency Act and declare the Freedom Convoy as some kind of a right-wing extremist group. That was, again, it was such... I can't even, I don't even, it has to be criminal. It has to be criminal. It was declared unconstitutional. So like, I'm wondering if again, people could be fired. I know a lot of people that were suspended, charged, fired, kicked out, even 20 plus years in serving while pregnant in one case. And these people still get to keep their jobs. And Bill Blair gets promoted. And by the way, again, he went from Toronto chief of police, lying about that, complete overreach there, to being part of cabinet during the Freedom Convoy. I was like, oh, great. This is not going to end badly at all. Yeah. But no one wants to hear it.
And the chancellor would not resign. And so they staged the Reichstag burning February 27, 1933, so that the Kaiser Wilhelm would resign and Hitler became the Fuhrer, meaning the leader of the upper and lower house of the Bundestag. And so that's how we got Hitler. So why would the Germans firebomb their own building and blame it on a communist mentally ill person, Marinus van der Lubbe? It was because it works. I mean, this is how this works. This is statecraft.
Right. Talk to Iraqi Jews who were bombed by the Zionists in order to move into Israel. It happens. It's just extremely hard to believe you live in a world like this.
Let's go back to like Ruby Ridge. Let's talk about Waco, and let's dive a little bit deeper here into Oklahoma City specifically. How would and we don't know specifically, maybe you do, on Waco and Ruby Ridge, but as our last guest just talked about, Colonel Watkins, like that was the start of the white supremacist narrative. You know, you have like a mentally ill white veteran. You have the, you have the start of that white supremacist narrative emerging. And then, of course, capped off with the Oklahoma City bombing. It'd be strange it's hard for me to believe that the SPLC wouldn't be involved in Ruby Ridge and Waco.
It's on record. I knew Randy Weaver and everybody, but I got to sit at the feet of Ted Gunderson and General Parton. So everything they told me was true. It all came out. Okay, so here's how it works. In World War II, unlimited funding, Marshall Plan, NATO. And so they set up Operation Gladio here domestically in the future, that what if American patriots get upset? We won't just blow up bombs and blame the Russians, to fight them. We will do that domestically. And you have all the movies, Civil War, one battle after another, predicting a civil war. They're promoting all of this. And so it's very, very simple. The first press conference after Biden stole the election in 2021 was them getting up and saying the number one terror threat is white supremacists. It's the number one crime in America, even though it basically doesn't exist. It's like finding a unicorn or a Lucky Charms elf or something, or So it's insane. And then they put up that, we can put it on screen. I told the crew to have it. They put up that national terrorism executive order in June of 2021 saying white supremacism is the number one threat. But then they define white supremacism as protesting lockdowns, protesting shots, protesting wars, being against anything Biden does. And then they use basically any crime statistic, and even including black people, to say they're white, to then create this thing that Homeland Security is now not pointed at Islam that they claim with 9/11, but now it's pointed back what they originally tried with Waco, which was declassified, that they said, let's just pick this group, let's go kill them, let's get America behind this, and now we'll have a way to basically take the country over. So this has been the globalist, leftist, Soros, ADL, Southern Poverty Law Center move, is how do they set the stage to stage a civil war, and then out of the crisis of the Civil War, they have an excuse for martial law and to basically end the republic. So that's what this whole thing has been, and it's just so devastating that now this has been brought out by Trump. And when I saw this 2 days ago, I was driving home. I went home early, like 6 o'clock. I almost ran off the road. And then I mean, literally, I was like, it just doesn't fit. Like, if I was Trump, this is exactly what I would do. And I knew Ed Martin was investigating. He'd tell me details. He said, oh, by the way, we're at Southern Poverty Law Center. We got incredible stuff, and we're right after the ADL. And I was like, God, you better be safe. He goes, well, I have all this oversight. I can see everything, but they won't let me do anything. But I I'm going to say what he said, but the point is he's being blocked. And I was like, this is incredible. Good luck. But the fact that they picked up his investigation and did this shows that Trump understands that. Here's the deal. From best I understand, this is speculation. Trump could either expose the whole Epstein thing, which he thinks will kill the stock market. He's not involved, but a bunch of people, big people are, Democrat mainly, but still. Or he could use the file to blackmail them. And I said over a year and a half ago, I said, if he goes that route, which I was told by a confidant of Trump he was going to do, I said, sir, they're going to turn around and stab you in the back. Okay, so let's be Machiavellian here for a minute. You can't trust them. So I think the fact that he's going after them, this is speculation, because 99% of what I do is just pure information, but this is speculation, is Trump finally gets it. And the fact that he gets the keys to the Southern Poverty Law Center, that's Obama, that's NATO, that's the deep foundation, deep state. I mean, he gets that information, and the guys over there are going to roll right over. If he finally presses it, he has them. I mean, this is doomsday for them.
What about the ADL part of it? What about the ADL part of it? Because, as you mentioned, they're in lockstep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ADL is mainly about buying off local police, using dirt, pushing brainwashing and censorship. It's more of the public arm, but it's the left arm. The Southern Poverty Law Center is the muscle. I mean, they're not blue, purple-haired. Oh, look, they're all a bunch of black people. That's just the front when you see the photos. It's an international NATO intelligence operation. I mean, they're killers. In fact, I've said on air, I said, if I get killed, for years, they're the main suspect.
Wow.
So they're the teeth of the globalists. And the fact that Trump just knocked their teeth in, because again, they didn't just come out with a little bit. They said, no, they run the white supremacists, which they do. So the fact that it was so full-throated, and now Blanche is on TV saying Biden protected them and blocked investigations by the FBI. I mean, you look at that signature, this is, and again, people say, well, wait, you're off the Trump train, you're on the Trump train. Trump has always been better than the Democrats. I'm just going to call balls and strikes. So paradoxically, they go, my listeners are like, wait, you're mad at Trump? Now this is great. Yeah, it's like calling balls and strikes. You make of it what you want. This sends chills up my spine that they did this, and the way they did it and what they said is true. Don't just believe them. I'm an expert on it. It's beyond a shot over the bow. Okay. Yeah. Well, this is letting Obama and Holder and all them know. We know where you hid the cookies in the cookie jar. We know this is grabbing them by the balls.
Right. Something that J. Christian Adams, he was a lawyer in the Justice Department during the Obama years, and he said Obama fundraised for the ADL, for the Southern Poverty Center. And here's how he did it, is he would have his Justice Department go and file very flimsy lawsuits against, say, I don't know, company B and say, well, you've been accused of racism. And company B would get so scared that they're being indicted by the federal government that they would offer a settlement. And the Obama Justice Department would say,
old-fashioned Jesse Jackson NAACP shakedowns.
Would say, well, here's what you do. Then you have to make a big donation to the Southern Poverty Center or the ADL or, yes, the NAACP. So what that was Obama acting as a shakedown. Yeah, and moving money, government money, into these organizations.
That's crazy.
Yeah, this happened. It's detailed.
That's all on record.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Al Sharpton. That's the old model. And then they went, how about we just cause a race war and use martial law for total control?
Or that.
Which came out in Obama documents that leaked like 10 years ago, that he was wanting to cause a martial law, before the election, his second election. Yeah, so this is, I'm telling you, you want to hit the heart of the heart. I mean, you don't do this. So this is Trump going right at the jugular. I mean, there's no way to dial this back or say this isn't devastating. I mean, this is like, I'm so pissed at Blanche. He killed the investigation of the CIA, FBI, DOJ declassified running all the lawfare against me with Ed Martin. But I didn't get mad at Trump about that 6 months ago. I said, okay, let's just move on. But so I don't trust Blanche. So I've analyzed every angle of this. And from my sources, they said, no. There's about to be a lot more of this because Trump it's not enough that he's going to pardon all his people when he leaves in 2.5 years. He's got to blow these people up. And the way to do it is to expose things like Fast and Furious, things like running the KKK, all of it. Listen, but I already knew all this. My sources and my research is, I've always told listeners, if I get killed, it'll be a white supremacist or a tranny, because that's, they're terror groups.
Right.
So it would take 10 hours to tell the story about the Southern Poverty Law Center and what they've done to us. But these guys have run me over repeatedly. And so I just cannot stress to people enough that I guarantee you, Obama and Brennan and the rest of them, that's who runs it, are definitely shitting themselves. Sorry for the French, but This is seismic. You cannot exaggerate. Trump just literally, use a Star Wars analogy, this is a torpedo down the reactor shaft.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, I know you got to go in a minute, but what do you think
I'll stay as long as you want.
No, I know you got to hard out. I want to get you out of here on time, Alex, but I know what do you think the end goal was for the SPLC and creating this chaos? Was it control? What do you believe their end game was?
Well, the facts are in. You have the head of the Southern Poverty Law Center caught a few years ago, a documentary in his office, and he's got maps up on the wall tracking the decline of white population and Christians.
Oh.
So
there you go.
And I'm not even Catholic, but they have this weird hard on for Catholics. They've calculated conservative Catholics are a problem because I guess they're not pro-Israel or whatever, or just mindlessly. And the goal is ending Western civilization. And they say it in white papers. They go, the only people standing up against this historically are white people. And they particularly talk about Scots and Irish and people in the actual big reports. So they're like, oh, the Scots have infested and infected the body politic with resistance. So, we've got to just get rid of the white people. There's like CDC heads saying in famous videos. And so they have this weird obsession that if we just, get rid of these people, that's not me saying it. It's on his wall, the decline of white people, and his goal is to get rid of us. And that's the head of the Southern Poverty Law Center. So
there you go. That's not mysterious at all.
The biggest Southern poverty group is white.
Right.
So.
Oh yeah, you look at but that's the thing. It's total. It's just psychotic snake eating its own tail. And again, I would expect now with this move, we're going to see a lot more of this. And this is exactly what Trump needed to do. And Trump always amazes me. He's been doing so bad for 8 months. He was doing so good the first 6-8 months. It was beautiful. Then he went off course and got horrible. And if he gets back on course, I'll be, they're supporting no matter what he says about me. I just see him as a vehicle to get stuff done. But if you want me to come back on next week, the whole other bigger story is The Onion, backed by Bloomberg and the Democrats publicly, finally is getting a shutdown next Thursday. And the guy they're bringing in to run it, who says he's going to wear my skin, produces national TV shows on Adult Swim that are pro-pedophile, pro-Satanism. And it is over the top insane. So we've launched our new news site just today, AlexJonesLive.com, AlexJonesLive.com. And all the radio stations are ready. We got the same satellites, new studios. But yeah, I've had InfoWars since 97, been on air since 94. This is a big date coming up, but AlexJonesLive.com is the new destination, the tip of the spear, and so much is happening. But things are moving very, very quickly. I'm a big fan of you guys' work. It's great to be on with you. I'd love to have you on my show next week because it's the twilight of the original InfoWars.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to have you on again next week too, as this this disaster of the Onion swoops in and pedophiles taking over InfoWars. Alex, great to see you. Thank you so much. It's unbelievable. But yeah, we'd love to have you back on next week.
All right. That was interesting. Yeah, with the Onion, I've talked about them as well, where they are very anti-gun. And so they do take over the network. I don't think they'll be successful. But again, it's punishment to Alex Jones, and he shares a lot of good content. So if you like him or not, that is a fact. And even with Trump, right? I'm going to reiterate, he was the superior option to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And there are things that he has done that are good. This is one of them. And so, I don't know. I hope there's a shift because, again, it does absolutely impact Canada. And where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So before I get into the video with Moose on the Loose and then get into some of my work, again, this might be a longer video. I did want to say, because of the work I've done, I did have a privileged platform. And so I have talked about working in executive protection for the governor and the STG of the Bank of Canada, more as a fill-in. And like my experiences with them, again, with the woman, I thought she was very intelligent. I thought that she was great. I felt, again, it was more like babysitting because we couldn't have firearms, and there was just a lot of things that I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. And but anyways, and also because like there was no open opportunity for me to actually communicate with people and actually share some information that I wanted to share, just to like plant seeds, just so that people could be aware of certain things, and info gathering and stuff like that as well. But anyways, and so I'm already rambling, and so the guy, he just did not want to communicate with us at all. And so that was weird to me, right? And so, but that's just how a lot of people are. They don't want to communicate with you at all. But again, nothing bad to say, right? That just is what it is. It's missed opportunities, and it is what it is. But with Carney, there was negative. It was negative, right? So it's not like everyone just shits on everyone that they've been employed by. Not the case at all. And I've heard a lot of good things from people, again, because of a privileged platform. I know people that have done security for Pierre Poilievre, and they have nothing but good things to say about him. And again, a little bit of frustration with some of his some of the things that he has not been vocal about, especially like when it mattered the most. But still, overall, like, he is the superior candidate, like not even close. Like him compared to Mark Carney, not even close. And I do wish that he would have became the prime minister. And but people like freaking Aaron O'Toole, right? They really, really ruined the party, unfortunately. And the divide with Maxime Bernier didn't help. And then I got all the propaganda. And then even Dr. Jordan Peterson, I know people that have done security work for him, even recent. And people say literally nothing but positive things about him and his family, including his daughter, Michaela. And so you're literally getting it from like the horse's mouth, from people, you know what I mean, that can give that honest opinion, not knowing that it's going to be shared on Rumble by me or anything like that. But I think it's positive, so I think that that should be okay. And so yeah, just take that for what you will. And it matters a lot, right? You know how they judge people in relationships on how they treat their Uber driver or their waiter or their waitress, etc. Same applies. Okay. I think this is the one. This is 2 days ago, so I'm a bit out of touch on this. So right to deletion. Carney minister reveals new AI plan. This isn't good. Plus BC debate turns savage. I like her. And so, oh yeah, I also wanted to say, I'll put this up, that Frances Widdowson got arrested. And so for trespassing, I guess she was trespassed the day before in, I think it was a university cafeteria. And she was just having a peaceful conversation a discussion regarding the residential schools and the burial grounds, and not having proof of specifically 215 bodies in the Kamloops location, etc. And she was friggin' arrested. And again, if you're being if you were trespassed, and again, I don't think that she should have been friggin' trespassed. This is a friggin' free country. You can literally have, I mean this respectfully, trans people wearing literal stripper outfits to daycares and pre-Ks and elementary schools, gatherings, cop gatherings, where you have them dancing on the stage like half freaking naked and stuff like that. Not censored. Anyway, but they won't allow someone to have public discourse. It's terrifying. So she was arrested, and I don't know what's happening with that. But again, that's a lot more money out of her pocket. And she's coming from a genuinely good place, and she just wants the truth. And there's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of money that has gone towards this a narrative that is not going to where it's needed. All right. There's a lot of Indigenous places that I've shared, right, where they're getting trespass notices, have for years, getting kicked off their land. Their families have been there for literally hundreds of years. Ridiculous. And they don't care about that. They're not sharing those stories about even paper plants, that have still not been cleaned up properly, and it's still poisoning water and soil, etc. So much money is being thrown. Like, where's it going? And we know where it's going. There's just so much.
I encourage you, do not look to videos made up of multiple different conversations put into one. And
They've announced their AI plan. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Mark Carney's AI minister, Evan Solomon,
gotta leave.
Revealing to a woke audience their new woke AI plan. We had the second BC leadership debate, which was wild. Shots flying back and forth. We got a bunch of stuff. Let's jump into this. Starting this episode off, we got Andrew Lawton posting this. The CBC president denies broadcaster is biased or poaches journalists from similar markets. As Andrew says, thank goodness we have the CBC to report on the CBC saying it isn't biased. And some good news, we got David Galaba here, so Maya's dad, posting this. So she's in a facility now getting rehabilitation. She survived everything. I believe her left eye is still not working, but she is slowly recovering. So I can't have this music in here, but you can see, like, she's coming back. There is some good in the world. Look at this one. We've got Norway's wealth tax increase expected to rise 146 million, led to a 448 million net loss as 54 billion in wealth left the country, reducing tax revenue by $594 million. This is what happens when you raise taxes. Wealthy people aren't going to put up with it. They'll just move their money. They'll move their assets. That's why we should reduce taxes, have very business-friendly environment, and wealth will come here. We've got this one from Global Politics. Canada, Mexico agreed to close coordination on USMCA talks. I think Mark Carney wanted to get back into the cycle here to pretend like he's trying to negotiate something here. So he said he's in close coordination with Mexico and Sheinbaum. Yeah, right. While Carney flip-flops weakness on the 19th stronger together, days later, Mexico has pushed Canada out of first place trading partner with the largest economy on earth. I wonder if Carney explained to Mexico that we have the best deal already. No kidding. Yeah, so Mexico is number one now. We're number two. We got Pierre Poilievre posting this. Why are more businesses closing than opening in Canada? Why did $1 trillion of net investment leave in 10 years? Carney's liberal red tape and 12 new bureaucracies. And that's where we are here. Companies leaving Canada. I mean, it's every single day. Moving ahead, it's Poilievre 24/7 on the CBC. That's all they talk about. Never Mark Carney or anything or any of his failures.
If things are getting worse, he's going to pay a price for it. That's how politics works. That's governments usually take a beating for that, and that's where I think Poilievre seems to have decided to lean into that. He's going that way now. We've seen him since the last election unsure a bit. I think the last few weeks, pretty clear he's trying to basically be Poilievre 222 to 224. 2024, that guy's back. That's what he's going to try to do, what he did to Trudeau, to Carney. And if the economy goes terrible, it could work for him. But of course, if the Prime Minister...
He's got another tax to X, right?
Yeah, he's got a backup plan, though. I think he's opened up like an oil and gas company or fuel delivery thing. I don't know. I saw something.
Yeah, he wants all fuel taxes gone for the rest of the year. So X the tax, the sequel.
Axe the tax, a sequel. These guys are a bunch of turds. They're making fun of the fuel truck that had his name on it in his press conference. These guys are so ridiculous. Carney helps Brookfield dodge $5.3 billion in taxes, and Canadians can't get all the fuel taxes removed. It's preposterous. Listen to this here on CTV. It starts off with this guy here giving props to Poilievre, and then listen to what Michael Couture says. It's appalling.
So here's the thing, though. I agree with Pierre Poilievre when he says that the policies he put forward are very popular. I mean, they're so popular that Mark Carney has been adopting them one by one by one.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's true. Like, he was on the issues, on the cost of living, on the carbon tax. He was proven right by the decision of the Carney government to adopt these policies. I think the issue is his tone. alone. I think the issue is the people he hang out with. I think the fact that he was hanging out with the Freedom Convoy. I think that his attitude towards the media, and you saw it again today in that press conference, is very dismissive. People don't like that. People are worried about is
dismissive. That guy was trying to woke gotcha question. That reporter didn't even have a real question because when Poilievre called him on it, he didn't even know what question he was asking.
His attitude, they're worried that he is a bit too much like Trump, and it's been playing against him because it's rallying the people against him, and they rallied behind the guy that could stop him, Mark Carney. That's what happened. It could happen again. And it's fun.
This whole thing of comparing Poilievre to Trump is ridiculous. Mark Carney is a multimillionaire. I don't know how much, 10, 20, 50, 300, $500 million. Does he have $1 billion? Donald Trump also billionaire. These guys roll in globalist, elitist circles. Donald Trump and Mark Carney have way more in common than Pierre Poilievre does with either of them.
Because since the beginning of the year, we could sense a shift in the way he was approaching media and approaching things. But, under siege, he backs up and he goes back to what he knows to do.
Yeah, and you talk about dismissiveness and Mark Carney stealing some things. There's a joke in there that I'm not going to make based on press conferences we've seen recently. Rachel, when you consider...
That's just a nasty joke. Like, he's saying outright here that Carney is stealing Poilievre's nastiness towards reporters. Like, come on. What is this? Carney treats female reporters like garbage. Let's say it as it is. Poilievre only calls out reporters if they have woke gotcha questions that are not honestly trying to ask something. It's a political agenda sent down by the PMO through these reporters. Where if you look at Carney, he's condescending, he's rude, he's arrogant. Poilievre doesn't do that to those reporters. He calls them out for woke questions that were hit pieces that came from their offices. I'm not surprised from Michael Couture, just another liberal. Moving ahead, we've got Evan Solomon here giving us a little glimpse into how the government's going to be pushing forward their AI strategy. It says government will use AI regulation to censor speech, something I warned about in Parliament Committee earlier this week. It's coming from Josh Denhas. In this article from Beta Kit, it says Canada's AI regulation will be airtight on bias, R-word, and H-word, Solomon says. It says here at a breakfast, Solomon said inclusivity can be Canada's competitive advantage. Oh, of course. He also said we're going to be tight when there's bias, R-word, H-word. We're going to be airtight and we're going to get it right so we can balance the innovation and our values and our protection. He goes on to say, alongside defending the government's commitment to diversity, both generally and in tech regulation, Solomon revealed some considerations going into the AI strategy, including that the federal government is looking closely at the right to deletion and algorithmic transparency. That's right. They want the right to delete whatever they want. That's what that sounds like to me. Maybe they're just going to use AI to delete any bad comments about Mark Carney. Are they going to delete any comments or posts or videos that are critical in exposing Mark Carney's conflicts of interest? Solomon said algorithmic transparency will help determine if there is a built-in bias against marginalized groups so that systems can be confidently adopted. Studies have shown that algorithmic biases, where systems are not well trained on data sets representing marginalized groups, such as people of color and members of the LGBTQ plus community, can cause harms like reduced access to healthcare and employment. How about the reduced access for employment for anyone whose skin color is white? He also said, we will not get this AI right unless we trust it, and if it's not inclusive, we won't trust it, Solomon said. Also saying the data of inclusion and the economic contribution is so positive that to ignore it is not just narrow-minded and destructive, it's just economically stupid, Solomon said to Applause. Countries that don't get that are going to lose. Our values of inclusion are our competitive advantage. This is a failing strategy, just like everything else the Liberals do. Moving ahead, we've got the second BC leaders debate here. Caroline Elliott getting slaughtered. Yuri Fulmer getting slaughtered. Really, they're slaughtering each other the whole night. Carrie Lynn Finley taking jabs on numerous people. Quite an entertaining debate. Here's a couple of the highlights.
To Mr. Fulmer, look, I don't deny that you've been in charge of lots of things, but what matters is what you do when you're in charge. So in business, you plastered your website with land acknowledgements and then scrubbed them when you joined this race. As a conservative candidate, you lamented that we're on unceded land. As chancellor of Capilano University, you endorsed DEI, decolonization, and called yourself and your students guilty settlers on stolen land. How can you stand up for BC if you share the NDP's view that BC is illegitimate?
So I've been collecting a lot of stuff. I was going to bring this up in a second video, but they already blew this up in this debate. But yeah, Yuri, Capilano College, so a bunch of land acknowledgements, not to mention all these connections to Carbon Zero, Coastal First Nations, his company buying carbon credits from Coastal First Nations, Great Bear Rainforest, Suzuki Foundation, not to mention the United Way and all this woke stuff, land acknowledgements. United Way of British Columbia acknowledges homelands of Indigenous people. Like, please, he's got way too many skeletons in his closet. Caroline Elliott released a video as this was going on, completely attacking him. Meanwhile, his team released a video on her while it was going on.
Good morning, friends. First, I'd like to acknowledge we gather today on the unceded territory of the Tsleil-Waututh, the Seychelles, the Squamish, and the Musqueam nations. And on behalf of us all, I thank them for their stewardship of the land, and I reaffirm our commitment to reconciliation, not just in words, but in actions, and in the way we live, learn, and lead.
I've honestly admitted since day one that I've done land acknowledgements. Caroline, if you're at the last debate, you would have heard me say that.
You're lucky I wasn't.
But the reality is, to conduct business in this province or to participate in institutions in this province, the reality was we sat in meetings and did land acknowledgements. We sat around the room and we talked about white privilege, because that is the regime that the Liberal United Caroline Elliott Party created for all of us to do.
talking about white privilege?
Because that is the environment you created.
Yeah, this is ugly on both.
He is literally getting paid to say that. People are literally getting paid to say these things and do these things. They're getting paid taxpayers' dollars. It's such a grift. They don't care. They don't mean it. They're getting it's a paycheck.
Side. So he's saying Caroline Elliott, part of the Liberals, that's the environment they created. Okay, fair point. But then for him to defend that and say, I had to go along with it, that's weak. They both lose out of this exchange. And that's how it was the entire night. If Yuri really believed in getting rid of all that stuff, then he would set some rules top down from the United Way and say, we're getting rid of the woke DEI stuff. But he's not doing that. Here we've got Carrie Lynn Finley taking some shots at Caroline Elliott as well.
Well, at least Yuri's run an organization. Anyway, the last time I heard someone say we need to moderate to win was Kevin Falcon. I remember that.
So Kevin Falcon is the former BC United Liberal leader, which is Caroline Elliott's brother-in-law.
And when Kevin Falcon led that party that Ms. Elliott and Mr. Millibar were part of, they brought us SOGI, DRIPA, safe supply, decriminalization of hard drugs, and they condemned the Freedom Convoy. You remember that?
Thank you, Ms. Finley. A lot of this goes back and forth with Caroline Elliott and Yuri Fulmer. Caroline taking shots at Yuri for him hiring temporary foreign workers. Yuri trying to expose some of her statements that she refuses to take credit for.
So I just want to go back to something that we talked about earlier, because Yuri, when I asked him about depriving our youth of jobs, he said, yeah, I mean, I was in A&W and it was so great. It was this huge career builder for me. And I was out there taking orders in the drive-thru. That's all really good. Why are you depriving youth of that very same opportunity by hiring temporary foreign workers to make a buck? It's not right. Our youth want to work in British Columbia. Tell us why.
I think I did, but I'll happily repeat it. There are places in British Columbia where it is hard to find people. 93.6% of my A&W workforce are Canadians, permanent residents,
you know he talks
people
to her,
here.
Like so condescending and like she's a friggin' child. Oh my God, I hate it when people communicate like that.
Just like me, I'm good. I agree with everything that got said, though I would ask a question, because my question last time didn't really get answered. So I do want to go back to Caroline, because she talked about good conservative values. And I do want to go back to which social conservative values do you find, quote, abhorrent, Caroline? And if you could just speak specifically, you called them abhorrent. You were specifically speaking about a couple of MLAs. What of their values do you find abhorrent?
So let's look at the clip that he's talking about. This is the second time he asks this question. Yuri's team posted this while the debate was going on, just after he asked the first question and she didn't answer it. Then his team posted this, which is pretty savage, saying Caroline Elliott called social conservative views abhorrent on the debate stage. She said it never happened.
Views, do you think it's a problem that Andrew Wilkinson didn't come out more strong potentially against them and that they are running? Some people are having a problem with that.
Well, Andrew Wilkinson's response was that those kinds of views are not representative of the BC Liberal Party, and certainly just from a personal perspective, I mean, I find them abhorrent. But I do know that those views I don't see reflected in any of the candidates I know, in any of the party members that I know. So I think from a political perspective, I think it may have some impact on some of the younger voters and the urban voters, but I think more from a less political standpoint and just a personal standpoint, it's not a view that I could support.
So that's the statements calling social conservative values abhorrent. How does she respond to this?
And it's okay if you've changed your mind. It's okay to change your mind. That's wisdom. But what did you consider abhorrent then?
So I will repeat that probably the best source of information is not NDP press releases. It's not spliced videos of me clearly wearing two different outfits, jammed into one, pretending that I said something that I didn't. I have been absolutely...
There was not two different videos spliced to one. This is all lying. We don't need a liar as the next conservative leader of British Columbia.
Crystal clear that Christian values belong in this Conservative Party. I would welcome them. I would embrace them. I would grow this party. And that is what this is all about, by the way, everyone.
So if we look at the next segment, Carrie Lynn Finley asked the same question.
Well, I think Caroline Elliott just saved someone else from a question, because I'm going to tee off on what she was asked earlier. You keep responding to this issue over Christian values and what is abhorrent to you by saying that these are NDP talking points. I've seen the video myself. You were on a public channel, on video, in public, saying that Laurie Thronus's beliefs, Christian values, and him not believing in gender ideology were personally abhorrent to you.
Thank you, Ms. Finley.
Her body language, look at this. She's so defeated. She doesn't know how to handle this. She's not cut out for this. She can't push back against David Eby, let alone anyone else, First Nation leaders, to clean up the problem here. She's not cut out for this job.
Again, I encourage you to not look to videos made up of multiple different conversations put into one. And I would say to you,
listen to the audience gasping and moaning at this, let alone all the other candidates. This is a load of garbage. Stop lying to Canadians. We can watch the video for ourselves.
Tell the truth.
The absurdity of telling someone who was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, went to church every Sunday, that I somehow find Christian values abhorrent is ludicrous. Ludicrous.
All right. The evidence is there.
There's a video of her saying, I just showed it to you. I don't know why she thought this was a good idea. I think she just doesn't know what to say. We got this clip here, White Claypool saying this response was really shallow. I agree. She gets asked about conservative values and she doesn't list any.
I think, and again, I don't know. I think, again, I have no idea, but a socialist conservative is an oxymoron. And you can't be a socialist and a conservative anyway. And so, again, on AI, because I'm being lazy this morning. Okay, so we peel back the layers. Conservatism is about the individual sovereignty, and socialism is about collective management. I've done dissertations on this. I've posted them on LinkedIn if you want to look. Diametrically opposed. Yeah. Authentic conservatism, natural law, divine rights, the sovereign soul, heir to the grace of life, socialism, materialism, state grant, an economic unit. So by definition, you cannot believe that rights are inherent, conservative, while simultaneously believing they are managed by the state, socialist. To combine them requires the liquidation of the individual. Interesting. The socialist conservative exists in reality under the names like red Toryism, paternalistic conservatism, or more extreme historical variations. This model seeks to preserve a traditional hierarchy, conservative, by using the state to redistribute resources, socialist, to maintain that hierarchy. The forced doctrine connection, because I talked about this in previous conversations, so it's just throwing it in. It's the ultimate strongman model. The state or the patriarch says, I will provide for your kitchen and your children, socialism, but you must submit to my church and my rule, reactionary conservatism. The appeal fallacy: in this system, you don't own your property or your rights. You appeal to the paternalistic state to take care of you. It is socialism with a traditional mask. It's doing a Bezmenov connection here and a Harari one. Perspective of Yuri Bezmenov's subversion model, the socialist conservative is a masterpiece of demoralization. It creates a closed loop where there's no escape into liberty. The left-hand socialism strips the individual of economic independence, no property rights, high dependency. The right-hand reactionaryism strips the individual of intellectual and social independence, no education, Kinderkirche, the KKK model, kitchen church kids. Anyways, the result, the hackable family. The state manages the economy and the strong man manages the morality. The sovereign soul is entirely erased in favor of the managed asset. That's interesting. Domestic technocracy. Conclusion. Highly efficient machine. It uses conservative emotional appeal to tradition to sell a socialist structure of total state strongman dependency. Interesting. As we've seen in the KKK, the Soviet Union, and modern high-control cults, this synthesis is the canary in the coal mine for societal collapse. It signifies that a society has moved from spirituality, natural law, to state control. If social conservatism is a management system designed to ascetize the family, does it suggest that the only true conservative position left is one that defends absolute individual sovereignty against any central planner, whether they wear a lab coat or a priest's robe? Interesting. Okay, I'll stop.
Do you even know what a conservative is?
What does it mean to be a cultural conservative in 2026? 60 seconds, please.
It's something I've been speaking up for a long time, because for far too long, parties of the right have talked all about free enterprise, which of course is important. We all like tax cuts. We all like deregulation. We all like fiscal discipline. That's critical. We all agree on those things. But you know what we haven't been doing? Standing up for our culture and identity as British Columbians. The left has been fighting that battle. That is why their ideology has been driven into every aspect of the public service, into our education system, into our public health office, into every corner of government that you can imagine. What we've been doing this whole time as political parties is not even holding up our end of the tug of war rope. So we may win some battles here and there, but until we deal with those issues, we will be losing the war. Things like how land back and shame drive DRIPA and the uncertainty and the lost investment climate. Things like drugs and crime that leads to small business shutting down. It's not economy or cultural issues. It's cultural issues being at the core of where our economy ends up.
That did not answer the question at all.
What does it mean to be a cultural conservative?
What does it mean to be a cultural conservative? She can't answer because she's a liberal. Here we got Carrie taking another shot at Caroline.
My question is for Caroline Elliott. I just saw another of your endless videos, 250,000 on Meta last month, saying we should hire British Columbians first. I guess your campaign team is excluded.
So yeah, a lot of our team came from Ontario. Fair point. Fair point.
I have a BC team. I refuse to let boys from back east dictate to us in BC how to run BC. There's plenty of talent right here.
Here's a very valid question that Carrie brings up. Yuri Fulmer wants to give up 5 seats to one BC in a deal he's got with Dallas Brody, but then David Eby won the last election with 1 seat. Is this really a good strategy? Yuri hasn't said which ridings those are. Are they downtown Vancouver, that's already NDP stronghold, or are they going to be Conservative seats, which would put the BC Conservatives back 5 seats in the next election?
You have capitulated 5 seats. Voters are looking for a fighter, a champion, not a compromiser. And capitulating, we need to win a majority government and not do any capitulation before we get to the starting line. To me, this shows a lack of political experience. Which 5 seats? All in Surrey, all in the Okanagan? Who chooses, you or Ms. Brody? It's not smart business. So why do you think it's the way to go forward?
You know, my years of business experience and my years of leadership experience have taught me that you have to be pragmatic in life. You have to look at the reality of the situation you're faced with, and you have to look back in history to 1972, where we split the vote and lost. 1991, we split the vote and lost. 1990.
So he goes on and lists a bunch of dates here and splitting the vote and losing. When in reality, someone needs to bring Dallas Brody back into the Conservative Party, and then we can win the next election here in British Columbia. We got Bruce posting his rankings here, and I agree with, well, for the most of this, Carrie Lynn, top winner here. I'd actually put Caroline Elliott at the bottom because she just doubled down on the lies. We don't need a liar as a premier or as a leader of the British Columbia Conservatives. We got Carrie going off on all of them here.
BC United lost our trust. Mr. Millibar and Ms. Elliott defended DRIPA, SOGI, safe supply, decriminalization of hard drugs, COVID handling, and condemned the Freedom Convoy. Mr. Fulmer and Mr. Blackbow stated that I did unceded land acknowledgements as an MP. I never did. I never capitulated, never used the excuse that I had no choice. Gentlemen, Ms. Elliott, you always have a choice. That's not me. I am a fighter for our sovereignty and for our homes. I will unify and take that fight to grassroots British Columbians who want good jobs and who've had enough of being pushed around by big government, big corporations, global world elites, and Doug Ford operatives trying to buy or intimidate their way into power. I am leading to take this province back, speaking up for the 95%, protecting our kids from Sochi, less government, more freedom. That's what we want.
You want to know who I think you should vote for? Carrie Lynn Finley.
Sorry for the lag time. So that didn't go well. Oh man. Yeah, she could have answered those questions a lot better. You know, I still think that she's coming from a good place, but the lying and then like not answering the questions, you know, I do feel for her, right? Like that's a lot. That's a lot. There's a lot of pressure there. There's a lot of pushback. Yeah. That's unfortunate. Okay, I did want to share one last thing, and then I do gotta walk the dogs and hit the gym. It's been a little while. Okay. I didn't even know where to start with this. This is 37 pages. Something that I put together. I think I have read some of this stuff already, but I want to go over it again for anyone that's new. And or if this like gets people's juices flowing and they want to conversate regarding this stuff, let me know. Okay, so let's see here. Structural failures of the lithic moon. I can get into the moon more. An engineer understands that load-bearing surfaces. They understand load-bearing surfaces. To refute a lunar base, you must challenge the moon's status as a solid mass. The inverse square law and luminosity. If the moon were a solid dusty rock, as alleged by NASA, its light would be diffusion reflection. However, the moon exhibits uniform luminosity across its entire disk. The refutation, a spherical rock reflecting a distant point source, the sun, must exhibit a hot spot, specular reflection, and significant limb darkening at the edges. And I think Austin's talked about this as well. And Jaron. The engineering reality, the moon behaves like a self-luminous disk or a cold plasma lamp. The light is consistent from center to edge. In engineering terms, this indicates a planar source or a luminescent gas, not a convex solid. It could be, though, like a plasma orb, like some kind of a luminescent spheroid. I don't know, but again, that has nothing to do. It's unrelated to the shape of the Earth. I'm going to reiterate that. And the plasma could be inside. I don't know. Thermal contradiction, cold light. Standard physics dictates that reflected sunlight should carry infrared energy. The experiment using a parabolic mirror to focus moonlight versus a control area in the shade. Eric Dubé has done great videos on this, and so has Dave Weiss. And I think Mark Sargent as well. Actual tests, experiments that, again, that they're showing you. Moonlight consistently measures colder than the moonlight shaded areas. A solid rock reflecting the sun would, by thermodynamic necessity, be a heat radiator. Since moonlight is antithermal, concentrated cold, it suggests a chemiluminescent plasma or a magnetic frequency shift. You cannot land a pressurized module on a localized temperature depression. Again, this is not perfect. This is why I would like to have some help with this and see how to put this together, what to start with, so that flows. The orbital mechanics of the circular ring path. An engineer understands vector and inertia. You must prove the moon's motion is incompatible with orbital gravity. And I've showed Tusi coupling and so many other examples of the greats from the past, astronomers from the past, astrophysicists, etc., that have talked about this as well. Okay, there's so many other things too. The three-body problem and stability. In a heliocentric model, the moon must be captured by Earth's gravity while simultaneously being pulled by the sun's gravity, which is technically stronger at that distance. And I'm going to reiterate, I do not think it's 240,000 miles away, approximately 400,000 kilometers. Okay, so for a solid object to maintain a perfect circular ring path for thousands of years without wobbling or being pulled away requires a track or a medium, not a vacuum. The moon moves through the ether, and Tesla, there's countless other people that believe that as well. It is a localized vibration, is what it's calling it, I don't know, or a magnetic knot traveling, a magnetic knot traveling through a specific flux line. Just as a maglev train doesn't land on its track but hovers due to field repulsion. The moon is a field effect. I kind of like that. The pin and slot gearing, the Antikythera evidence. We've had advanced civilizations that have shown us how this Earth and this cosmos operates, even with the solar dials and things like that I've shared on videos. So again, this is not new stuff. The ancients modeled the moon's variable speed using a pin and slot gear. I wanted to get into some other things. So the plasma and electromagnetic composition. In my model, the moon is a plasma phenomena. Plasma can appear solid to the eye, but has no surface for a landing gear to compress. The moon is a localized discharge or a ball lightning effect on a cosmic scale. I don't know. That's not how I would say it. Numerous historical and amateur observations of stars being seen through the moon. Lunar occultations where the star does not disappear immediately. Let's see here. Yeah, I talk about the radiation belts, the Van Allen belts. Okay. So the moon is a localized electromagnetic luminary plasma orb, I don't know, traveling within the contained gyroscopic system of the Earth's firmament. It is a focal point of etheric energy, a plasma-based frequency that provides the cold light necessary for the biological balance of the level Earth. Okay. To claim there's a base on the moon is as scientifically illiterate as claiming there's a base on a rainbow or a base on the North Star. It is a category air. I don't really like that. It's close. Field-induced luminescence or etheric excitation. Yeah, I like that. A cathode ray tube or plasma discharge lamp rather than a solid sphere. Yeah, I've talked about the limb brightening, Lambert's cosine law, meaning it would appear brightest at the center and dim towards the edges. Yeah, so limb darkening, but it in fact exhibits limb brightening or uniform edge-to-edge luminosity. This is a signature of self-luminous plasma or a surface in a state of total eternal reflection. Ancient engineering, the etheric fluid perspective. The masters of the past, specifically the Maragay astronomers and the Jesuit scientists like Riccioli, and I have his book, I'm still not finished reading it, understood the heavens as a medium of energy and vibration rather than a vacuum. And Tesla said the same thing. Nasir al-Din al-Tusi, and I've talked about him before, and the fluidity of motion. Al-Tusi's work in the Maragay Observatory was predicated on the idea that the luminaries moved through a fluid-like substance, the ether. The Tusi response, he would argue that the change in luminosity is a result of the friction or interaction between the moon's local fields and the ether. As the moon moves faster or slower, modeled by his Tusi couple, the density of its light changes. The phases are essentially the moon's response to the varying pressures and frequencies of the solar wind within the etheric medium. In the Almagestum Novum, Riccioli cataloged the moon with unprecedented detail. He recognized that if the moon were a mirror, it would be hot. He would point to the physics of insulators. If the moon were a solid conductor reflecting light, it would retain heat. Since it produces a cold light, it must be an electromagnetic phenomena that converts solar frequency into a specific lunar frequency. I like that. He would view the phases as a modulation of the signal, where the sun provides the carrier wave and the moon provides the output. That's interesting. Yeah, that's not me saying this. This is someone literally hundreds of years ago. Refuting the solid surface allegation, defined by its dielectric constant and inertia. Not interesting. Let's see here. I've talked about the 19-year Metonic sync. The 19-year spiral on the Antikythera was the engineering manual for these interactions. It showed that every 19 years, the electromagnetic interference pattern between the sun and moon reset. Yeah, so the circular ring path, the moon does not fall around the Earth. It is guided by a magnetic track. The reason it doesn't rotate, showing only one face, is that it is locked into the etheric field, much like a maglev train is locked to its rail. That's interesting. But yeah, I've talked about the sun's travel path through this zodiacal belt so many times, how many degrees it travels per hour, etc., and what that distance is calculated into, and how far north and south of the equatorial ring it travels. Because it gets into plasma discharge and stuff like that. Okay, so the non-lithic nature of the moon. So optical power distribution and its thermal profile. Let's see here. I think we're getting into it. In classical engineering, a solid non-polished sphere like a rock reflecting a distant light source must obey Lambert's cosine law. This law dictates that the brightness of a surface should be greatest at the point closest to the light source, the hot spot, and decrease towards the edges, a phenomenon known as limb darkening. Okay, we already talked about that. We've already talked about the ancient perspective. Electroluminescence. Yeah. The inductive coupling, phases as excitation states. I just want to make sure that this is up. Let me see here. Nope, I knew it wasn't up. Sorry about that. Just so you can see it. All right. The solar transmitter. The sun is a high-frequency energy transmitter moving along its circular ring path. The moon acts as a localized insulator that stores and releases energy through plasma excitation. Sure. Cold light, etheric. Okay, so kinetic failures for craters. Impact craters should occur at various angles, creating elliptical holes, yet nearly 100% of lunar craters are perfectly circular. The plasma solution circularity is a primary characteristic of electric discharge machining EDM. When a high voltage arc strikes a dielectric surface, the moon, it creates a circular, I'm going to bastardize this, Lichtenberg figure or crater. So I just wanted to share what that is, because people haven't seen it before. And it's really hard to get this information because you get a lot of stuff from NASA and they absolutely edit images. And so this is what they look like. Lichtenberg figure moon craters. So I'm just going to shut that down so I don't share it again. I want to just share another. Did it even pop up? I don't even know if I had it up. Sorry about that. I probably didn't. Anyway, I'll show you. Lovely, and this is from Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter Camera. Lovely Lichtenberg B. The lack of atmosphere, so they're trying to blame it on the lack of atmosphere on the moon, can have its benefits. For example, without an atmosphere, there are few processes to degrade landforms. On Earth, rain and wind, see, they're blaming that on, like, again, impact craters. Impact craters has nothing to do with rain or anything like that, right? Like immediately after an impact. There's erosion and maybe it will like fill up with water and stuff like that afterwards, etc. But like, this is ridiculous. Anyways, I wanted to show you the photos, so I shouldn't have shut it down. There we go. Here we go. See if I can get some amateur photos in here. I should have known, coming from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, that there would be propaganda involved in that. Let's see here. It's not a lot of photos. That's very interesting. Friggin' again, it's not adding to stage. It does not want me to share this. Sorry. Look how circular those are. That's crazy. And there's not a lot of photos. I try to look for amateur ones. Did it bump me out again? Okay. Okay. Let's see here. So if the Earth were moving at high velocity, the delicate electromagnetic sink required to maintain the 19-year metonic cycle and the lunar phases would be subject to massive centrifugal distortion. The absolute precision of the Antikythera mechanism and the Jantar-Mantar, really look into these, they're incredible, proves that the luminaries are geared on to a stationary center. The moon is a frequency-balanced light in a stable dome, claiming there are okay, anyways, still going on with the basis thing. Okay, so intelligently designed clockwork cosmos. I like that. So the Tusi couple, 1247 AD, is the primary mechanical linkage that refutes the need for a moving Earth. To an engineer, it represents the conversion of rotational torque into linear displacement. Ancient astronomers like Nasser al-Din al-Tusi and others too, even Eratosthenes, thought the Earth didn't move. And so many others as well, Eudoxus, etc. So again, that is what's new. Okay, so let's see here. Observe that planets move back and forth, retrograde and up and down latitudinal variations. Rather than assuming the Earth is wobbling, Tusi engineered a gear within a gear. The engineering proof: by placing a smaller circular gear inside a larger one with a 2-to-1 diameter ratio, a point on the inner gear's edge travels in a perfect straight line. This proves that the wandering stars programmed mechanical oscillations. I don't know. The moon's libration is not a physical tilt of a rock. It is a mechanical play or eccentricity, I don't know about that, of a geared tooth following its prescribed path. Cannot land. It keeps on going with the moon landings. I don't care about that anymore. The Santucci Armillary in Florence and the Vatican spheres are not models in the modern sense. They are the architectural schematics of the clockwork. The nested gear architecture, each luminary, the sun, moon, and the 5 wandering stars, is mounted in a distinct bronze or wooden ring. These rings are physically connected, meaning the motion of one affects the timing of the others. And even with the Tusi coupling, I do think as well, like Tycho Brahe did. So again, this is not being crazy. Like, he was a literal astronomer expert. And he, as well, if you look at the Tusi coupling, there's the possibility that the 5 wandering stars are traveling around the sun, and then it's traveling on its own circular ring path, and that the moon is also on its own individual circular ring path, but above us, localized, smaller within the firmament. Okay. The Earth sits at the center, acting as the fixed bearing around which the entire assembly rotates. In engineering, the center of a rotating machine is the point of 0 velocity. And this is where at the core as well, like we exist on the flat plane of inertia, the habitable region. And there's some kind of again, frequencies, waves, vibrations that are coming out from the stationary core, this superconducting magnet, whatever you want to call this, that creates the toroidal and poloidal fields. Let me see here. The Jantar-Mantar in India, built using Al-Urdu's principles, represents the chassis. I don't know how you pronounce that. Anyways, of the clock. These are not just observatories. They are the standard weights and measures of the cosmos carved into stone. Instrumental stability. By building the Samrat Yantra, the great sundial, out of masonry, Maharaja Jai Singh II ensured the observer was bolted to the level foundation of the Earth. The gear tracking. These stone instruments are used to track the gears in the sky. The gears, the luminaries. When the shadow of the gnomon hits a specific marking, it is recording the mechanical alignment of the sun gear. Yeah, so the moon were a distant rock where bases could be built. Again, it's still going on with that. These stone instruments would eventually fall out of alignment due to the wobble of a spinning Earth. The fact that they have remained accurate to the second for centuries proves the Earth is the stationary plate of the machine. The grounding plate. Okay, let's see here. An engineer must respect the hierarchy of the machine. I was saying, like, how would I refute this to an engineer or someone that's really, really smart, right? And again, I've thrown this onto multiple different software programs as well. I've read so many freaking books on this. I've looked so much into this. And so again, I'm not saying that I'm committed to this, but I'm saying that this, to me, makes a lot more sense than what mainstream media is pushing. Phasing gear engineered to provide the 29.5 day cycle of light. Anyways, the 29.5 day cycle. And the 19-year metonic harmony. It is part of the etheric mechanism designed for the biological and chronological regulation of the level Earth. To claim that one can land. Anyways, it's still going on with the friggin' moon landings. By framing the cosmos as an intelligently designed clock, you shift the burden of proof to the claimant. They must explain how a rock can maintain the mathematical precision of the Tusi couple for millennia without a mechanical track. I don't know. I don't really like that. Without a track. The mechanism treats the moon not as a destination, but as a secondary timing gear. I do like that. And a master in a relationship with the sun gear. Yeah, Antikythera. The calculation, Greeks discovered that in a 19-year metonic cycle, the moon completes exactly 254 sidereal revolutions. Yeah, so with this, the Big Bang Theory evolution stuff, no. Okay, so I'm just going through here to see if there's anything more interesting. Again, it's talking a lot about the Antikythera, which in itself, there's so much you can do regarding that, so much research. Yeah. Yes, I've talked about the sorrow cycles. Or turn spiral kinematic memory. Oh yeah, the Archimedean spiral. That's cool. Looking at that. Yeah, I go a lot into calendar systems. Yeah, even when people are idolizing false gods and not the creator god, they're worshiping luminaries, right? I think there are allegories that have been created, and I've talked about it. I've done whiteboards on it, and where we're misinterpreting, like people, what we're calling Satan. I believe that's connected to Saturn and the winter solstice and the winter months in the northern regions of the Earth, etc. And like Venus. And again, there's just so many different figures connected to Venus throughout history, and I've talked about them before. Dawn, Phosphorus, Venus, Athena, or Aphrodite, sorry. Anyway. The moon, Celine, Diane, Miriam, possibly Mary. Yeah. Let me go through here. See what else. But this is just one thing I put together. And there's another draft I made where I want to make the connections between Walter Russell and Tesla. And then with what I also am interpreting as part of my theories, injected into that to see how it can work together or blend together. And there's a lot of connections. But I might read that the next time. Yeah. Talking about the Van Allen belts. And again, there's so many people that refute that with a lot of science and engineering. Bart Sibrel. Perfectly parallel rays when we don't see that. Yep. Chemiluminescent plasma. Chemiluminescent plasma. It's so funny too because when like that Amy doctor, she was talking about free energy or propulsion systems with chemical reactions. And I absolutely think that that is possibly, again, on target for, yeah, it's definitely on target. And it could possibly be what is creating the light of the moon. Who knows? And that seems to be functioning very well without any interference now for thousands and thousands of years since God created it. The engineer architect of the universe or the cosmos. So for NASA, let's see here. Sorry, I know that this is probably boring to people. The Kubrickian simulation and front screen projection. Oh yeah, that's for moon landings as well. Yeah, I've done a lot of videos on the moons, on the moon, and before people just throw that out, I just wish people would just actually take a look at the videos I've already done before. High resolution background, the moon landscape is projected onto a highly reflective screen behind the actors. To a camera lens, this creates an identical depth of field. Terrestrial analogs, places like Devon Island, which I've mentioned before, in Canada or the Nevada test site, provide the exact geological features seen in NASA footage. The Blue Marble emission report from Robert Simon, and he's on the record saying this, and I've shared that video multiple times. So NASA's lead data visualizer famously stated, "It is Photoshop, but it has to be." He admitted that the Blue Marble images were stitched together from data strips, layers, because they lacked a single high-altitude camera capable of capturing the whole Earth. And he said they looked flat. You stitch them together to turn it into a globe, not the other way around. Yeah, so if the globe is a composite of flat data, then the foundation of the mission leaving the globe is built on a digital fabrication. I do agree with that. Engineering pilot and community's oath of integrity is paramount. Investigative researcher Bart Sibrel famously confronted various Apollo astronauts, asking them to swear on the Bible that they walked on the moon. The reaction, many refused, became aggressive, or offered non-denial denials. To a behavioral scientist, this indicates cognitive dissonance, at the very least. And so the only one that was willing to put his hand on the Bible literally was even saying it in the video because it was recorded, but he was an atheist and he didn't even believe in God, so it didn't even matter. So of course he did it. He's like, I don't care. But the people that believed in God did not do that. And again, look at Bart Sibrel's video because he literally has this on the record. And he also has Buzz Aldrin punching him in the face. So take a look at these videos, please. Anyway. Pilots and engineers are trained to value empirical truth. Being forced to maintain a simulation that violates the laws of inertia and etheric density creates a psychological vibration of guilt. Interesting. Their refusal to swear on a sacred text suggests that while they are bound by national security oaths, man-made laws, they are hesitant to commit perjury before the Creator, universal law. And that's why if you get people that don't believe in God to go on these missions, they'll lie. Yeah, look at some of the tattoos. Pressure vessel paradox, I've talked about that. There's so much, even with the Nixon call, zero delay in some incidences. And they do a lot of stuff in pools too, in other areas. Magnetic plasma orb traveling a circular ring path within our localized, intelligently designed system. I like that. Okay. Anyways, I just wanted to show you like a touch of my work that I'm nowhere near completed yet. And now at this point, I don't even know if I'm even motivated to put something together to publish. Oh my God. But I will. I'm mostly joking about that, but I do want help. And so there's no other real news that I wanted to talk about. Oh, yes, there is. One more thing. Yeah, Redacted had on that guy from SEAL Team 6 again. And he, again, is like, he's talking about, he's so, in my opinion, he is very, very incorrect about his assessment of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Like even thinking that, again, the mic blew up, etc. And other people are saying that as well. I will reiterate, I've gone frame by frame as well. I've done so much digging into this. And again, look at my videos. And it just surprises me. SEAL Team 6, the guy that was involved in the Osama bin Laden takedown, etc., all that stuff. And survived it, even though, like, again, a few months after that, like, again, there was a huge tragedy where a lot of people did end up losing their lives by their helicopter getting struck, and again, Taliban. Anyways, but yeah, like, he's supposed to be a friggin' expert, and he's bragging about all the kills he has, all this, all that, a hunter, blah blah blah, but like not even like cluing into like frangible ammo, etc. Like, and like you can't use FMJ like on steel plates and stuff like that. Like, you have to be you really, ammunition, like your ballistics matter, ammunition absolutely matters, like even on ranges and hunting, etc. And it's different than in multiple different operations and areas, right? Like even in urban areas, there's different rounds that you use in built up areas as opposed to in, anyways, I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't want to ramble on, because I do have to go. So on that note, I will leave it at that.